Welcome into MJT Football. We're live. Tony Tucker with NFL Mike on TikTok. The Joe Morley on TikTok is not with us. We got a great show. We're talking OBJ and Tom Brady and Russell Wilson and some other free agency news, whatever's out there. That's what we do. We're three friends who love talking football. We're always looking for a fourth, so hit that subscribe button if you're listening to the audio version. Come on over to YouTube and join the fun. We do, like I said, have a great show. But it's gonna be a smaller show. Not a shorter show, a smaller show because we're without Joe Morley. And let me clarify, too. When I say not a shorter show, technically it is a shorter show because that man is 6'4".
I give him 6'5". I give him the credit of 6'5". So I feel a little taller when I tell people about him. Like, oh, yeah, this is my friend Joe. And they're like, how tall is that guy? And I'm like, oh, he's 6'8". So then they think I'm a little taller, you know?
Yeah. Santa Claus can dunk. that photo, I showed it to my nephew, and he's like, can that guy dunk? And I'm like, maybe one day he could. I don't think he can anymore. What's up, Albert? Albert in the comments there. Again, like I said, MJT Football. Three friends who love talking football, but we're always looking for a fourth. So become one of the fours. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and jump in there. This has been a really great offseason, and I think that there are still so many great players out there that can be going and added to teams. You know, whether they're younger or they're veterans, there's still a ton of talented football players that are going to be added to rosters. We're going to be talking about one of them. Is there anything you want to talk about? Anything you got going on? Any videos you're excited to be released on TikTok that you're sitting on?
No, not really. Joe has been very inspiring for TikToks. The big one today I'm working on is on the packages of picks total for Brendan Cooks because of what Joe said. I think on the show yesterday or the day before. So that's all I got working there. Congrats to Japan, my home country for 3 years of my life. Winning the Baseball World Classic. Ohtani saw the man playing for the Yokohama Bay Stars in 2017 and 2018 live there in the Tokyo Dome. Makes his way to the Angels, all that stuff while I'm gone. And now look at him winning the bringing it home for Japan against his teammate Mike Trout. So congrats to Japan.
Yes, congrats, Japan. I think they've now won 3 of these. I didn't really watch any of the games until yesterday's game, and I watched the majority of it. And then I went in to eat dinner, and I was like, oh, we got Trout versus Ohtani coming up here. And I just asked my wife, I go, can you see the TV from where we're at? What happened? And she goes, there's a bunch of Japanese guys celebrating. And I just was like, oh. Yeah, it was a really great moment. So we got go on vacation already. Get out of here.
No, see ya. Scram. I guess this isn't nuts and bolts. We can't just kick them out like we usually do.
Oh yeah, I will be I'll be going to Hawaii again this summer, and you guys will not be seeing me on any of the live shows. I will not be on vacation commenting with you buffoons about anything. Let's get into our first topic because we kind of already talked a little bit about some of the free agents that are out there, and the biggest name by far, probably even before free agency started or after, has been OBJ, right? Like, there's no more polarizing player in the NFL because you are either like all in on OBJ or you thought he was overrated or he's washed up or he's whatever your thoughts are. Everybody has a hot take on OBJ. But he did have the tweet where he said, like, you know, I ain't asking for 20 million, but 4 million's a little light, you know? And in my estimation, 4 million is a little too light for him and what he can do. What are your thoughts on this situation?
Well, I think, at the same point, to be made against OBJ, if there was ever a demand of anything more than $12 million, $15 million, that's also too heavy at the same time. So I'm glad that OBJ isn't being so cryptic with all this like he has been up until this point pretty much. Like he's saying it straight up. I was not asking for 20 million, but I'm asking for more than 4. I'm asking closer to 10, 12, whatever it is that he's asking for per year. I think that it's smart to lower your price tag, lower the amount that you're asking for. That will open up your options. So you can look at more teams that are competing for a championship next year to go and join. Versus if you're asking for 20 mil at 30, whatever years old, in your early 30s, you're going to be a Houston Texan, my friend. You're going to be, not even a Jacksonville Jaguar. They got enough receivers over there. You're going to be on a team that's not competing for a championship next year that just wants to bring you in to sell some jerseys and tickets.
And this is where I think that you're wrong. I don't think any team, I think all these teams, what's going on, Booty Bandit? I don't think I've ever seen you in here. What's your favorite team? And
probably the Raiders, just assuming by the Raiders, Cowboys, Niners, Booty Bandit. Yeah,
it feels like the booty. I think that we've seen a real shift, and I honestly believe that there is something going on where it's like teams are only going to pay left tackle. They're really only going to pay marquee numbers for an edge rusher, a quarterback, and a wide receiver, and everybody else. All of these things we're going to start seeing go down. And what's going to happen is your secondary wide receiver is not going to be at, even your third, which OBJ on certain teams could be coming in as a third guy. They're not going to be paying double-digit millions for that player. So, there's not a team out there that I think would have given him the $20 million. Because you're either close enough to win a Super Bowl and you could go into a place like Kansas City, or if he could get $8.5 million from KC, which I would hate it. I have this awful feeling that KC hasn't done a lot, and they're going to find a way to steal OBJ or steal DeAndre Hopkins for a 4th-round pick or something awful from the Cardinals, which is going to just crush me. But OBJ to me should be about where he wants to live and where he has a chance to win. And what are those options? And I do think KC is a solid option for him where he can go and contribute and play and compete for a championship. If he wants to be somewhere warm, I don't know. Yeah, but what's the price, Mike?
I'm talking about the Rams. I'm talking about the Rams.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. I thought you meant the Chargers. I'm like, we can't even pay Austin Eckler. What do you mean?
I just don't think he brings enough of an upgrade from Josh Palmer at this point in his career to where it makes sense for us to spend the money on a similar style receiver like that. OBJ is not burning people down the field like he used to, unless there's a serious improvement from having another knee surgery somehow. But I agree with you, and it does frighten me about KC because they've been in the conversations for a couple receivers out there. Adam Thielen was the most recent one. That's why it scares me the most, is because an Adam Thielen addition kind of lines up with an OBJ or a D-Hop addition when you're talking about how the numbers are going to work, what you're going to have to give up to get him. And another thing that's scary about D-Hop to the Chiefs and the potential of it is these teams that were D-Hop destinations are slowly one by one backing out. And that's bringing his price down. And he's going to go for, like you said, a 3rd or 4th round pick when it's said and done. And Andy Reid will do that. I think that he'll be cool with that.
Again, Harrison is in here still feeling under the weather. Hope you feel better, brother. Wishing that you get healthy and get back to shouting all those crazy things about the Carolina Panthers. Booty Bandit says that he's a Seahawks fan. So big things happening for the Seahawks. You guys destroyed that trade. I remember talking to a couple Seahawks fans who were bummed about Russ. And then 12 months later, they could not be happier about how things have worked out for them. Who else did I see in here? Negative. And Joker's just saying, don't jinx it. We got a resident Chargers fan in the house along here with me and Mike. And it's just one of those things where, when you're a well-run organization, things just tend to fall your way. And you look around and you go, well, how did that happen for so long? And it's like, you got a good head coach and a good quarterback. And then you can put together 20 years like the Patriots. You can put together the last really 10 years for the Chiefs. When you look back on it, even with Alex Smith, once they leveled up on the quarterback, it's gone to a whole nother level. and you have yourself in a position where even if they don't get OBJ, are you telling me that they can't go in the first round and get themselves a primetime player? Like maybe they move up because they like the route running ability of a Jordan Addison. I don't know how this turned into a Chiefs love fest. Screw the Chiefs. I hope they don't get OBJ or DeAndre Hopkins or any good player.
I hope Patrick Mahomes just decides one day, you know what? F this team or whatever he would say angrily. Yeah, I think that the move that they made now, and admittedly was completely wrong about it when it happened, but the move from Tyreek Hill on was perfectly done and perfect timing and everything. So great.
Yes.
Great. On to the next topic.
Speaking of greatness, speaking of goats, Baker Mayfield wanted to let everybody know, I'm not Tom. I'm not going to try to be Tom. Well, good news, Baker. Nobody was confused about whether you were going to try to be Tom from a leadership standpoint, from a play standpoint, from a modeling standpoint. Nobody was confused about whether or not. It's like, we want to know, can you be the Baker Mayfield from 2020 when they made the playoffs? Bolt up, Tyler Scott. I see that out there. But can Baker Mayfield be just that quarterback that got them to the playoffs and was efficient and was playing and got somebody like me excited? I'm a Baker fan. And I think that there is a scenario in which he could be a guy that throws 22 touchdowns, but if he keeps the interceptions down around 5, they still got playmakers on defense, and they could make some noise in this. Like, I think last year the issue is, we all kept talking about it, why aren't they running the football? But if you get back Ryan Jensen and Wirfs is healthy, and they make a move to bring in somebody to kind of combo with Rachaad White, who we both think is a very capable back in this league. I don't know if he's necessarily a 20 totes a game kind of guy, but his ability in the passing game and the running game, and then you bring in somebody else, that might be a little bit heavier, a little bit more of a banger there. Now all of a sudden the Bucs, they're going to be fighting for a division. If Baker can be the same Baker he was when the Browns made the playoffs 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, whatever it was.
Yeah, and that version of Baker Mayfield is just basically a game manager. That's gonna be the biggest thing for the Bucs. That's what they're gonna try and do. They're gonna try and play good defense. They brought a couple of the DBs back. They're gonna try and play solid. I think they got Levante David back as well. They're gonna try and play solid defense and run the ball and try and manage Baker Mayfield to a point where you can make it work with the play action scheme. What confuses me is that here's the exact quote from Baker: "I'm not going to try and be like Tom Brady. I'm going to be me. That's how I've gotten to this point." And my question is, to what point? 4 teams in 12 months? Is that the point? Like, well, you should maybe try out the Tom Brady route. I know what he's saying, that he's not Tom Brady. He's not the GOAT. He's not going to try and fill those shoes. But like you're saying, maybe we should try and get Baker Mayfield on the Tom Brady diet or something, at least at the very minimum.
So I think he used a poor phrasing of words, right? Because we all took it as got me to this point, 4 teams in 11 months. But I think what he meant is it got me to first pick in the NFL. It got me to Heisman Trophy candidate. It got me to starting quarterback in the NFL. That's obviously what he meant. The Booty Bandit over here is getting wild. So if you're listening to the audio version, you have to come over and subscribe on YouTube to MJT Football, because this dude is talking about us trading Herb and Eckler to the Seahawks. It's not good enough that you got all those picks and you got Pete Carroll. That ain't happening. You get out of here. You guys got my boy Kenny Walker from Michigan. You don't need another running back.
You need more running back.
You need more talent
DJ
on the Seahawks in the running game. As far as what Baker can do, and there's some people in here who think that Baker, because Booty Band is also saying some crazy stuff, that he's 2.0 Tom Brady and he's going to be better than Burrow. And then somebody else says that they're a dark horse to win the NFC South or make the playoffs or whatever. I would just say this about what the Bucs are, is that this is an early season. If it's headed in one direction, good, let's go. I could see the owner stepping in and saying, put Kyle Trask on the field and let's play for Drake May or Caleb Williams, or maybe even Spencer Rattler. Like, I think Spencer Rattler's got a real shot to get back in the conversation this year, where he was a few years ago, like, Heisman this and first overall pick and whatever. He's in a good situation. He's going to be in some big-time games in the SEC, and if he can show up and ball out, there's going to be a very talked-about QB class coming in to next year. So I could see a scenario in which they say, hey, we're really sorry, Todd Bowles. We thought you were going to have better luck than you had with the Jets, but not so fast. We're going for a top 5 pick in this draft, and maybe the Bucs pack it in early on and start sort of punting on the 2023 season. It could go one way or the other.
And I think that's what they're probably thinking. It makes sense that you would bring in Baker Mayfield and see how it goes with him in camp. And if he seems like he's going to be your starter, start him off in the season. And if it starts to go south, let it go south. You know what I mean? Let it go. You know, Mike, I know you got a streak going with the 1,000-yard thing. No one's ever going to do this shit again anyways. We're going to have to end that. Maybe Mike comes off the field a little early for one of his toe injuries. Or,
trade Mike. Like, I really think Mike Evans, if the Bucs are bad, because they're also talking about it potentially extending where the trade deadline is going to be. So if they move that back in the NFL, if they decide to move that back to week 10 or 11, like later in the season, now all of a sudden you're going to have teams that are going, technically we're not mathematically eliminated, but we kind of got to win out our last 7-8 games to even have a chance. Then we're going to start to see more movement of players, guys like Mike Evans that are making a lot of money, and a team that might say like, hey, let's go and make a real push for this because we can bring in Mike Evans, and Mike Evans will be a number 2 on certain teams. Like let's say the Vikings are having a really good season and KJ Osborne isn't quite working out as a solid number 2. Hey, let's go bring in Mike Evans to the Vikings for 1 year. I'm just throwing out hypothetical teams where he could land.
I can see it. I can see it. I also think the Bucs would be smart to try and keep it together a little bit if their plan is to draft and go forward. But who knows how long term you can even think in the NFL when you don't have a quarterback. Like anything can happen, right? Who knows?
Yeah, just seeing what Carolina gave up to get number 1 in this draft, I wonder what will happen next year if a team like Arizona is number 1 and Arizona says, no, we're going to move forward with Kyler Murray. He's our guy, which to me would be a mistake. If I end up with number 1, I'd be much more inclined to trade Kyler Murray and start over with one of these guys because you're going to get them on a rookie deal. And if you believe Jonathan Gannon is really going to build a program there, let's let him start over with a rookie and see what the market is for Kyler. Because Kyler at this age will probably get a couple of first-round picks. But next year's number 1 overall pick, if it is the Cardinals, they could have a real king's ransom on their hands for that situation.
Oh, yeah. And it would make sense to load up the picks again. Maybe they're trading back this year as well. But I think that, whatever team, there's only a handful of teams in the league right now that would not be smart to trade their quarterback to try and go get one of these, the top 2 of next year. So we'll see what it looks like, especially if you're spinning your tires. That's the biggest thing with Baltimore and the Ravens, and it makes it even stickier. And we can transition over into this topic as well smoothly. Is the situation where you haven't won a Super Bowl or even really gotten close to winning a Super Bowl, making the playoffs, I guess, is about as best the Ravens have done. Won a playoff game here, won a playoff game there with Lamar Jackson when he's on his rookie deal. Before he's taken up, a large percentage of the cap just by himself, how can the Ravens justify to themselves saying, making this contract happen, giving him this fully guaranteed money, taking this hit on our books is going to help us get closer to winning that Super Bowl? Like I say it every time we talk about it, that I think the Ravens will one day, if they keep Lamar long enough, hit magic in a bottle in the AFC. One of the other quarterbacks will go down or something, and they'll get lucky and make it to the Super Bowl. But how can you justify to yourself, oh, we failed for 5 years trying to do this. Now we're going to give ourselves less money to spend, a weaker roster, and expect it to now all of a sudden work out.
Yeah, but to me, that's not the mentality that the Ravens have. Like, I don't think that they think like, oh, well, we lost before, because they know what happens inside their building with injuries and everything that goes on. And Baltimore views themselves, and they should, as a premier franchise in the league. It's really almost rare for one division to have 2 premier franchises. And I think there's really only like 5 or 6 extremely well-run organizations. And Ravens are entering into a new era because Ozzie Newsome, who was there for so long, who was there for their 2 Super Bowls since the Ravens have gotten a franchise, they now have a new GM there, and I'm blanking on what his name is, with the guy that's been in the news talking about Rashad Bateman, whatever.
DaCosta?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think his first name's Eric or
Yes.
Jack. Yeah.
Yes. Well, the owner too, I forget, I jumble around what's going on there, but it doesn't matter. Who's ever in charge now, it's a brand new ballpark. I mean, you have Ozzie Newsome who drafted Ed Reed, Terrell Suggs, Ray Lewis, like all of these guys that were just monster Hall of Famers, and their identity has been defense. And then you go to the Pittsburgh Steelers, a team that's identifiable defense. The thing that's interesting with Lamar is the amount, and I text this to you privately, the amount of impact that this guy has to change on how things are happening in the NFL, right? Where there's just some sort of uncertified pseudo agent contacting teams and saying that Lamar does not want a fully guaranteed deal. Now, it's still going to be a lot of money of what he wants, but he really just wants to move on from the Ravens. And my initial thoughts were he was trying to get to the point where he's saying, hey, I don't want to be tagged. I want fully guaranteed. I don't want to go the Kirk Cousins route where you have to play on 2 franchise tags. I want my money now. That's what my impressions were that. But now you're telling me that he really just doesn't want to be with the Ravens. And now my brain goes to the side of, is he upset that they traded away Hollywood instead of going the other way, right? Because when you look at it, it's like a team could have, as the Ravens, they could have said, it's not working out with just Hollywood Brown. So in his mind, go get A.J. Brown. Go get DeAndre Hopkins and give me Hollywood Brown and give me an offensive coordinator that's going to let me show what I did at Louisville and push the ball down the field and throw the football instead of asking me to be the best running back in the league and still compete as a top-level quarterback because this shit is getting my body beat up. And he wants to go to a team that says, oh, no, we're going to treat you like a quarterback and allow you to play quarterback.
Yeah, and with the whole fake agent thing, it's almost like he's like prodding to get a team to go, I need you to give them something to match. Otherwise, we're just going to sit here and spin our tires forever. I agree with you. I think that I would like to see Lamar Jackson in an offense, and whether it's for better or for worse, just to see it happen at least, where he has a Justin Jefferson out there or Jamar Chase or a receiver that level. A guy I've been hitting the desk for years is DJ Moore to Baltimore. That trade has been a trade made in heaven for like 3 years now, and Baltimore Ravens aren't able to get anything done for any of the receivers that have become available and been put on the table. We've seen some insane trades, Tony, by receivers the last couple of years, and superstar level guys, game changers. AJ Brown taking his team to the Super Bowl. Devontae Adams still had 1,600 yards with Derek Carr last season. Tyreek Hill doing what he did with Tua and Skylar Thompson. Like, the Ravens could have gotten Lamar somebody during his rookie contract. I mean, look at the Chargers, for example, with their young quarterback. They got 2 $20 million wide receivers. So they could have brought in at least one. They could have done something. But I think that the Ravens were saying we're going to beef up the defense, we're going to beef up the offensive line, and we're just going to run the crap out of the football on this thing. And maybe that's hurt Lamar a little bit in his dynamicness and development as a passer. Interesting stuff. Also, speaking of receivers, breaking news, live on the air, McCole Hardman has signed with his new team, the New York Jets. We got a speedster in New York.
Stop. Why the Jets? What is happening? They have 8 wide receivers in that room. Like, why are they still signing wide receivers? What the is happening?
And not even just signing wide receivers. Like, McCole Hardman is a solid wide receiver. He's a good wide receiver.
Denzel Mims and Elijah Moore have to be on the block, or Corey Davis. Like, what is going on?
Yeah.
There's so many wide receivers in that room. Braxton Berrios is like, now everybody knows why I couldn't return to the Jets. Because their plan is to have 17 wide receivers suited up on game day. Harrison in here says he could see Lamar going to Tennessee or Washington. Washington is the more likely fit to me because Eric Bieniemy, I think, has intentions to pass the football. I think if he went to Tennessee, we already know what Vrabel wants. Vrabel wants to run the ball, and I think that would just be more running. I could see the Colts definitely saying, we want Lamar here, and Shane Steichen has shown his ability to throw in the ball in the last 2 spots that he's been with Herb, with Hurts. That's a good thing. The thing that is weird to me, Mike, is him not asking for guaranteed money makes it even that much more likely that the Ravens are going to be able to match whatever that contract is, unless it's something crazy where immediately at signing, he gets a signing bonus of 200 million crazy, something crazy like that, where it's like the Ravens are like, all right, cool. It's not all fully guaranteed, but your first, payment is $180 million, and we're not going to do that. So
yeah, we hooping going to be on a new team soon. Yeah, I think it is kind of fishy with this agent, non-agent going around and trying to get someone to do something. It's almost like they're trying to do like what Joe was talking about on the show the other day, where they put something in the contract that the Ravens just can't do for whatever reason, and it's a loophole in the rule.
Well, he can't. Technically, I don't think this guy can make official offers or negotiate, right? Because he's not certified or sanctioned. He's just basically on his behalf saying like, hey, I represent Lamar. He's not using the word agent, but he's saying, hey, I'm from the Lamar Jackson camp, and I've been authorized to call you, Jim Irsay, and say, hey, he'd like to work with Shane Steichen and be in a backfield with Jonathan Taylor. Here's the other thing too. I don't think any team is doing anything with Lamar Jackson. Everybody keeps waiting. When's the Lamar? It's not happening until after the draft. Because if you're a team, why would you sign Lamar this year and give up next year's first round pick? Like give up this year, give up a top, like if you're the Colts, give up number 4 overall. Give them next year's pick when you have Lamar Jackson on your team, and it's probably going to be pick 26. And the pick after that's probably going to be, pick 29 or whatever, if things are going the way that you'd like it to go.
Makes a lot of sense. And I would enjoy him in Indy as well. I think that's a good fit for him. The offense has the power in the backfield to still, be run first, but they got some dynamic weapons out wide as well. I'm a big fan of Michael Pittman's game, so I think that'd be good. All right, let's go to this next one, which is kind of fun here. Big Ben was actually offered by the 49ers last season. They didn't say specifically when, but I'm going to assume it was late in the season when Jimmy G went down. That's what I'm going to assume. Last couple games of the regular season and into the playoffs, the 49ers reached out to Big Ben and offered him to come back. There was a report that Phillip Rivers reached out to teams and asked to come back, but that was refuted by the man himself, good old Phil, saying that teams reached out to him and he declined. And I'm assuming, again, that probably was the 49ers. The 49ers were going to bring someone out of retirement and go on a Super Bowl run last year, and no one wanted to do it.
Yeah, they called Favre, but he was dealing with the Mississippi legal system. I think that this is the situation. There are a few teams where these old guys could come back and still function in, right? The 49ers are one of them. Big Ben could have came back and been like, oh, you need me to just dump it off to CMC to hit George Kittle in a nice little middle, to hand the ball off or throw shorts, quick screens to Deebo Samuel, and he could still look very functional. I think the Chiefs are another offense. We saw old boy, what's his name? The guy who came in for a drive, Chad Henne, Michigan guy. Sorry, Michigan. Chad Henne come in and have playoff drives with them in that. There are a few offenses where everything is so well run that you could come in, and this is a spot for Big Ben that he could have come in and been there. I don't know why you wouldn't. That's the thing is I want to hear from Ben, and Ben has a podcast now. I've been watching some of the clips of him sitting there. It was weird to see him and Tomlin so buddy because they look to not be super friendly towards the end, but I'm glad that they are. That's great. Big Ben, why wouldn't you come back and play on that 49ers roster and have a chance to be in a third Super Bowl? Like, that's what I want to know. Like, what was it that made you, like, do you really have this image of your head where you only wanted to see yourself in a Steelers uniform? Because if that's it, I fully respect that. But if you're telling me that the 49ers called and you didn't want to go back and play a few games for that team with that roster, I don't get it. I don't understand it.
And just those images, like it'll add a whole nother part to Ben's legacy. Or I would rather have been Philip Rivers if I had to pick between the two. I bet you they're both out of shape, Tony. They're both just so out of shape. They can't fucking play anymore. Tony's frozen. Tony? Hello? I pissed him off with that one. Big Ben's not out of shape, Tony. I take it back. Big Ben probably has an 8-pack. He probably has a 6-pack. I'm sure Philip Rivers does too. Well, we'll let Tony deal with the technical difficulties over there. Hopefully, he figures it out. Let's go to the chat here. I don't know why he didn't rock another team just to have a chance at a Super Bowl. He would have had a chance at a Super Bowl for sure on this 49ers team. I think, like Tony's saying, most quarterbacks would be able to make it work with San Francisco. All you got to do is lean on the run game and complete accurate passes into wide open windows when the teams come up to try and stop the run. So it actually would have worked out. But yeah, Big Ben was offered by the Niners. Philip Rivers was offered by the Niners to return last year instead of Brock Purdy. That should also, and that's what I was going to ask Tony, hopefully he can get back in here. That should also indicate what the 49ers plans might be going into next season. I'm doing good, Harrison. I hope you're feeling all right, feeling better from your illness. But I think that should signal to you guys what the 49ers coaching staff's thoughts are on Brock Purdy. When they lost Jimmy Garoppolo, they were going after guys like Big Ben, who had been retired for over a year, Philip Rivers, who at that point had been retired for over a year. I think it's safe to say that Trey Lance will get the favorable positioning in the race for this job. And it would take a superhuman effort by Brock Purdy, and Brock Purdy's hurt. I don't know if he's going to be able to even be able to suit up until the season's about to start again, if that, at very minimum. Another thing to keep an eye on, and with this topic and what I wanted to bring up before we lost Tony here a second ago, is if they offered Big Ben a contract midseason, they offered Philip Rivers a spot midseason, the 49ers are going to offer Tom Brady something in the middle of the season if they lose Trey Lance for any reason next year. So be ready for that midseason breaking news that the 4-4 49ers are signing Tom Brady, and they're about to go on some crazy run with Brady all the way. Trey shouldn't even have been drafted that high with him not playing much ball in college. I see why they drafted him that high. I just didn't see – I feel like it would have made more sense for a team that's already sitting there to take the chance on a raw talent that they can develop, that has potential to reach heights that we've seen guys like Patrick Mahomes reach. That's what it looked like for Trey Lance coming out of college. But trading up 3 first-round picks to get a guy that is unproven out of college, I understand what you're saying there, Kyle. That's the part that was a head-scratcher to me. The quarterback position is a position that you have to take swings. You have to try and hit home runs, and sometimes you will strike out. But that was more than a swing. They put it all on the line with that trade, man, and that could have set them back a Super Bowl maybe. We don't know for sure. I hope Brady doesn't come back. He seems like he's at peace with his decision, but like we were just saying with Big Ben, how do you turn that down if that opportunity is on the table? But I'm just saying, there's a chance that it could happen late in the year next year. Trey was a gamble for sure. I agree with you. Booty Bandit, I agree with you. I would have went Mac Jones in that same spot. You can argue whether or not Mac Jones would have changed anything for the 49ers going forward. He definitely would have given them some more health in the pocket over the last couple of years. This is a big one. Nick Day, Gardner Johnson to the Jags. This is a good ad. I think he'll be really good with Travis Etienne there in Jacksonville. Now that they've lost James Robinson, I think it'll be entertaining to see what Gardner Johnson can do with a more expanded role than he had in Cleveland. Because when he did get in there in Cleveland, he was good, man. I would have liked Gardner Johnson to be a Charger, honestly. I wouldn't mind adding him to our RB room. And are we back? Are we live?
I hope so. Mike, I just want to say one quick thing about the Ben Roethlisberger thing. Vinny Testaverde came back at like age 46, Mike. Like, it doesn't matter how out of shape you are. You know the offense. They both would have been fine. But the D'Ernest Johnson thing is very interesting because now you have the ability to have that sort of dual back set where you have 2 versatile running backs. Like D'Ernest Johnson has shown what he can do if he gets carries in Cleveland. And I'd be interested to see what that deal is for, because I think that that's a steal. And the Jaguars just continue to load up. Calvin Ridley, now 2 good backs. If they go get themselves a tight end in this draft for Trevor Lawrence, the Jags are legit. Like, they get themselves a safety and a tight end. Whew.
And I think a lot of football fans are going to start to see why everyone was hyped up on Trevor Lawrence even more this year. The way he ended last year and the heat that he was spitting out there, other than the first half against the Chargers. But let's just say 3 of the interceptions were kind of just great plays by the DB. Like, tight window, happens in the NFL, just happened to happen 4 times in one half. But anyways, Trevor Lawrence next year is going to hit a different stride in training camp and carry that into the beginning of the season.
Yeah. And Kyle makes a good point. They do have Evan Ingram. I'm talking about long-term tight end. I'm talking about what the team can be set up for, right? In a draft like this, if they go get a tight end, that's what I'm talking about. Like, Evan Ingram is still good, and he's kind of more of like a slot receiver at this point. But, I don't want to see it. And the thing that hurts the most, Mike, is that Doug Peterson, is that their guy has an offensive head coach that is building everything around that, as to where don't make me say it. Don't make me.
It felt like that was the perfect hire there, and I'm glad they were able to get him and save Trevor Lawrence from Urban Meyer and whoever else they might have possibly signed if Doug Peterson didn't go there. Real quick before we go on to the next topic here, if Carolina gets CJ Stroud, how many wins as of right now for the Panthers, Tony, in that division? Duct Tape Dynasty said 6 wins in 2023.
Ooh, I like that. I like that take. I think it's higher than that. And until I get other information, I just can't see them not drafting Bryce Young. Like, he's the guy that you would trade all of that for, in my opinion. And that's what I think. But I think the Panthers legit are an 8 or 9 win team with CJ or Bryce. There's just so much talent on that defense. We forget about, like the picks that have hit, like Jeremy Chin and JC Horn. They still have Burns. Like, they're just, it's going to be, and they've brought in a lot of really good coaches. Like, when you look at that staff, like, I think that stuff matters. Like, look at what the Lions did and the guys that they've brought in to coach. Like, you bring in guys that have played in the NFL, know the NFL, and they are going to raise the level of what your team is capable of doing. I think they'll be able to run the football and play good defense. And Frank Reich is a way better coach than how he was treated in Indianapolis.
I'm going to say buckle your seatbelts, everyone. I mean, it could be a smokescreen, but a report dropped like an hour ago that right now Anthony Richardson is the Panthers guy at number 1.
No.
So we'll see what they do. We know how teams try and put reports out there and stuff, but if you're going to stay at the first overall pick and draft somebody, doesn't really matter what smoke screens you put out there. It's the first overall pick. All right, let's talk about this. Yeah, go ahead.
Unless there is a team that says, oh, no, we have to have Anthony Richardson no matter what.
Yeah, you everything.
We'll give you 3 first-round picks for that.
That's what I'm thinking.
It could be full Kevin Costner.
It could be a enticing type thing, like, hey, we need a couple of those picks back, and we still want to get the quarterback as what the reports were right after they made the trade. And now Kyle's saying he saw something that they're not interested in Anthony Richardson. So it's all over the place. Hayden, they talked about this yesterday on the show, by the way. Really recommend going and checking it out right after this live. Talked about the Texans offseason a little bit more depth. They just got Denzel Perryman today as well.
What?
Yes. So Denzel Perryman is a Texan. Didn't they sign another linebacker? They got another linebacker down there too.
I don't recall off the top of my head who it was. But the Texans offseason has been absolute dynamite. Bringing in veteran wide receivers. And the best case scenario to me is that the Panthers or whoever do go elsewhere and Bryce Young is on the board for them. Yeah. And then they will have dominated the offseason and they'll probably win 7 to 8 games.
And Bryce Young feels like the guy. He feels like the perfect fit. I would like CJ Stroud there as well, but it does feel like Bryce Young's a perfect fit with DeMeco Ryan and what this team is going to be next year. All right, let's talk about Russell Wilson. successful knee surgery by all reports. Does this help Russ cook, Tony? I mean, I'm sure it was nagging him if he actually was injured.
Yeah, I mean, this came out and it was interesting. I don't know why I'm stammering so much over this, because a lot of the things that we were talking about last year was like, why isn't Russell running the football? This was such a big part of his game, his mobility, and we thought that maybe, when you see the aging of the mobile quarterbacks, they don't age super well, and if he lost that step, he wasn't going to be there. Now all of a sudden you're telling me he's going to have that back, that extra playmaking ability, and hopefully he will be able to understand, if you're a Broncos fan. Personally, I hope it's a train wreck. I love Russ, but now that he's a Bronco, I hope it's a miserable disaster and we see Jared Stidham start like 6 games and then Russ can go revive his career somewhere else. Like, go to a team that is going to need a veteran quarterback next year, because there will ultimately be one. It always happens. The Jets, Aaron Rodgers won't work out. One season, it'll be done. Russell Wilson can go to New York. Russell Wilson could go to the Vikings next year. He could go somewhere. He could go to the Rams and play with Sean McVay. As long as it's not the Broncos' success, I don't really care. But for Russ, I do think that between healthy body, Sean Payton, it spells out a little bit of danger.
Yeah, and I think that Sean Payton is going to make this offense a lot more Russ-centric, I should say. Not centric, but he's going to shape this thing around Russ a little bit better than we saw with Nathaniel Hackett. In the offense, it seemed like Hackett wanted Russ to do everything. And I think Sean Payton's going to make it easier on Russ. He's going to get him a run game going and get some more, not capable wide receivers, because I like the wide receivers in Denver, but maybe a little bit more experience within an offense that's used to kind of picking instead of going deep every single play like Russell Wilson's trying to do out there in Denver, doing spin arounds, throwing high balls to Judy, and Judy's like, what the fuck, man? That was 10 yards over. It was just all over the place. But I think it's got to be good for us. It's got to be good for us having surgery, getting healthy. This is why I keep telling people about Justin Herbert. I feel like he, early on in the season, lost a huge part of his game with that rib injury, and now we know it was a shoulder injury later in the year as well. Herbert was a lot less mobile last year. I mean, you were like, why isn't he taking off in some of these situations? Come to find out he needed surgery.
Well, he needed surgery, and he was playing with gutted midsection after that hit in week 2. This is the thing. Everybody's blaming Nathaniel Hackett for last year. Every time I watch somebody who breaks down tape, you can see KJ Hamler throwing up his hands being like, bro, I'm wide open. Why are you looking 50 yards downfield right now? We're on the 6-yard line. Like, why are you looking into the stands? Just throw me the football. I'm wide open. So I think it's a little bit of like Sean Payton coming in and commanding and just having that presence that says, hey, this is the read. We're in cover 2. You know where this ball is going before the snap. This is what happens. We're getting the ball in the hands of a playmaker on a quick slant right here, and you're going to let him do his job. And that is how this is going to work. And it's as simple as that.
You burned the water in the kitchen last year, burnt the cereal, all kinds of stuff. We'll see what happens. I think that Javonte Williams is Russ's best friend, and the sooner Russ realizes that, the better the Broncos will do next year. We know the defense is going to be great. If they need to score 24 points a game to win 10 games next year, I think they can do it. I think they can.
They will. They've spent a lot of money this offseason, and we will see whether or not that is good or a bad thing, because I have questions. There was a question about the Chargers' number 1 need up there. I don't know if you want to hit that.
I added this to the end, Tony. So at the end, let's just go through. Okay. We'll answer whatever's already in, and then you guys can throw some more questions in there at the end. We have one more topic. This is the last topic. But before we get into it, if you're tuned in on TikTok, please come over to YouTube. If you're tuned in on YouTube, please help us out real quick. Turn on the notification bell on your subscription so you can be here for future live streams. We like to react to the NFL, things break in the NFL. We hop on live and talk about it the next day. That's kind of random. So if you have that notification bell on, you can be here more often live. And when we post stuff, you can go and check it out when you get notified on your phone. And then it helps out a ton. You guys don't even know how much it helps. YouTube's algorithm goes almost 100% off of likes. So hit that like button. Help us out. Last topic, Tony. So what the way this developed is, obviously the Eagles just lost CJ Gardner Johnson. He's leaving the Eagles to go to the Lions, and there were reports like crazy that the offers were very similar and that the Eagles might have even matched the Lions' offer to keep him in Philly. And CJ still left anyways. In his press conference, he said he feels like the Lions have more talent than the Eagles. In 2023, which team do you think is going to be better is what I'm going to ask you between the Lions and the Eagles, because that seems like a wild statement, the team that just went to the Super Bowl versus the Detroit Lions who didn't make the playoffs. But if you actually look at the talent on the rosters, it wasn't as crazy of a take as people might think.
Yeah, it's pretty insane because you might need to form an all-time Lions roster to compete with the amount of talent that was on the Eagles roster last year. And I mean, this is just one of those kind of sour grapes things. You wanted something, it didn't work out, and now you're saying it. I think it fits nicely with the culture that is with Detroit. But we can't overreact to the Lions having their best season in half a decade to what the Eagles had. The Eagles have legit 2 Hall of Famers on their offensive line. Like Hassan Reddick had 19 and a half sacks last year. They had A.J. Brown set the franchise record for receiving. They've had all of these things fall in line on one team, and Jalen Hurts, who was a first-team All-Pro. I'm not sure about this, but the Lions' first-team All-Pro might be Bobby Lane from like the 60s. And I don't even think they did All-Pros back, in that time. Like, it's ridiculous the amount of talent that the Eagles had on their roster last year. My lovely bride is in the room. I watch her every time.
But I'm talking about for 2023, Tony, which of these teams you think are going to be better? Because we just saw the Eagles lose a bunch of players, including CJ Gardner Johnson. And I know we talk about the quarterback disparity, and that's obviously there. But the list of players is starting to add up on Philly. I mean, they lost Hargrave, Kaiser White, CJ Gardner Johnson to the Lions, Ndamukong Suh, Linval Joseph, TJ Edwards, Robert Quinn, and I think there's a couple guys I'm missing. At the very minimum, out of Philly next year and the results of all these players leaving, at least we're going to get to see Nakobe Dean and Jordan Davis and what they can do. That's going to be fun to watch if those two are both studs.
That's the crazy thing, Mike, is they drafted 2 Bulldogs from an amazing defense who essentially were redshirted in the NFL. No other team could do that, could take 2 top 50 players from the previous draft, and they sit behind future Hall of Famer Fletcher Cox, and they're able to have a linebacker that they're able to walk. Like, the Eagles should get tons of compensatory picks from this draft, even though they have better DBs, they had better edge rushers. I know that the Lions are exciting and fun, and the Lions have had a great offseason. But this is just one of those things where, like, last year or headed into this year, I'm not looking at the roster and going, the Lions were better last year or headed into this season. They still have the number 1 position that has the edge, quarterback. They still have, there's a wide gap between Jalen Hurts and Jared Goff, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that the Lions offensive line would be the one that would need to take like a huge step forward and be on the level rushing wise with Monty and Swift as Philly to compete with them next year. It's just interesting to see a guy have the opportunity to go to either, and he chooses Detroit.
Yeah, but the thing is like in Detroit, he's going to make and get a lot more credit for good things that happen there, right? Because you're on the ascension. If you're just in a mix with the Eagles team, like all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, yeah, you should be playing good football because you're surrounded by all of these recognizable names, Bradbury and Slay and Hassan Reddick and Brandon Graham and just all of these players that you get to just sort of share in the accomplishments with. If he goes there, Cam Sutton, Mosley, they bring in these 2. The Lions are real nice. It's a nice team. And on paper, it's a stacked roster. And I would actually say, Mike, the strength of the Lions is their offensive line. Like Ragnar and Sewell and the other guys. There's another guard over there that's a nice player. Like they got nice things going on. The Lions are going to be a competitor. The Eagles were dominant last year.
I mean, they did only lose once, with their starting quarterback. So that was
Twice.
Twice technically. Yeah,
Yeah.
twice. All right, guys. Q&A. We're gonna finish the show off here. You can type any questions in the chat here on YouTube. So if you're on TikTok watching my face and you haven't gone to YouTube yet, aren't you tired of watching my face? Come to YouTube and submit any questions you guys have into this chat where we could see them. First one was from Duct Tape Dynasty earlier. What do you think is the Chargers' number one draft need?
Chargers' number one draft need to me. I can't say it, Mike, because if you're not going to sign Austin Eckler, then I think that it's running back. Like if he's not your future and you're picking towards the end of the first round and the guy from Texas is there, I told you I will not say his name unless he becomes a Charger. If that young man from Texas is available, then I would think you have to pick him. If you are going to commit to Austin for a couple of years, then the running back room is in a good spot, in my opinion. And I think if you really wanted to, could go in the third round and get a nice running back in this draft. For sure, you can get a nice running back in this draft. It's edge rusher. Like they have to find a young player that can start to develop. And at pick 21, I think they're going to have a real opportunity to get themselves an edge rusher that might fall for whatever reason. Like maybe Miles Murphy from Clemson dips down a little bit. I don't think Tyrese Wilson is going to fall, but Van Ness falls. You already know that my darling edge rusher is Derek Hall from Auburn. Like if that guy's available, and he wouldn't be a great, people wouldn't love the pick at 21, but if they could trade back,
get him still,
and still get an edge rusher, I think that's kind of what they need to do.
It'll be interesting, and we'll see as more rumors come out on what Tom Telesco is thinking as we go forward. We were able to call it pretty accurately last year. Like Zion Johnson was big bold letters for both of our boards. This is probably a guy.
The final mock draft.
Yeah, this is probably a guy that the Chargers are strongly looking at. So if you guys want to know who the Chargers are going to draft and want spoilers, be sure as we get closer to draft season to go and check out our Nuts and Bolts podcast. Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I think running back is obviously becoming a pressing need just because of the simple fact, not even necessarily that we're losing Eckler, is that there's no one after Eckler. We're not like the Cowboys where you lose Zeke and Tony Pollard's there ready to take the reins. Like I know Josh Kelly in Chargers fans' eyes improved last year, but did he improve enough to give him the number one role in this offense with all these guys? No, I feel like you'd be doing a disservice to our rushing attack and what the steps were in bringing in Kellen Moore, getting the offensive line healthy, and keeping Trey Pipkins around to help the rushing attack. You'd be doing a disservice by not getting a running back after losing Eckler in this draft. But that could be the second-round pick. That doesn't necessarily need to be the first-round pick. I like the idea of an edge rusher sliding. And, of course, I'm a big fan of all the tight ends, man. I'm such a huge fan of these tight ends. And I think that could help out our rushing attack a lot as well by getting a dual tight end. We've had Everett and Parham and these guys. They've kind of just been making it work without a real star tight end like they had. I thought Hunter Henry was a star at least. Someone like Hunter Henry back on this team. We'll see. I think that the Chargers are in a spot where they can kind of watch how the draft is going and determine what their best path is for the rest of the draft from there.
I think so. They used to refer to like as lunch pail guys, and I think the tight ends that they would or should grab are those guys, right? Darnell Washington, John, Michael Mayer. I almost said John Mayer. Wonderland. In that, tight end is a good spot if they go in that big blocking direction. Dalton Kincaid is fun and exciting, and you hear people compare him to Travis Kelce. The problem is you can't compare anybody to an all-time great.
You can hope.
Utah. You could say there's things that remind me of him, but I go, oh, this guy's the next Travis Kelce. That's ridiculous because Travis Kelce has gotten to play for Andy Reid and with Patrick Mahomes and Alex Smith, like one's an all-time great QB, and the other one is a very solid NFL quarterback. So, like, you need that. And yes, Dalton Kincaid will be coming into play with Justin Herbert, but then you have to look at what the makeup of the team is and what it needs. And in my opinion, if you're going to take the next step in the running game, it should be Mayer or finding a way to trade back and get Washington. And we all know that he has the connection with Kirby Smart. Coach Staley has the connection. So maybe he's talking to him and saying, like, did this guy just not put up big production numbers because he was playing next to Bowers and you had all this talent on your roster and you were dominating? Because you look at it, the guy's catch radius and hands look amazing. So I don't know why people don't like him as much, but to me, he's right up there with any of the tight ends in this draft.
He's one of those players where if you could feel that he's going to be dominant. You can almost tell by just watching his stuff, and the numbers aren't there, but you could see it in his play in the game, that this guy strives to be a bully to guys on the end of the line of scrimmage. And that's what you love to see out of a guy and a potential NFL player. Godspeed09 is asking, how do I join you guys live? I want to talk some football. Hit me up on the side, Godspeed. We'll do something on TikTok or on Instagram first and see how it goes, and maybe we can get you on the show one day. I'm going on Duct Tape Dynasty show. They invited me on. I think it's in a week or so. Any other questions? Let's see here.
What he did on his way to London last year. I don't. Oh, is he talking about high knees?
Oh, Russ.
High knees? I don't know.
Here you go. You think Tony Pollard will return the way he was this year, even after his injury? This is a scary injury, right? He broke his tibula?
So yeah, I saw like a 4-month recovery. Any injury at my age, my advanced age, it is difficult. But I think a young guy like him, he seems to work really hard. Like I think he'll
be fine.
Yeah, I think he'll return. My question is he built for the kind of role that they had Zeke in before? And is the Cowboys' offensive line returning to what it was before? There's more things that go into it. How will the offense look under Mike McCarthy as opposed to, so it's like, what is he returning to is also as much of a question as how much will he return from the injury for my estimation.
Yeah, we'll see. We're going to get to see Malik Davis next year as well, finally, after these years of being buried in the depth chart. But we'll see what happens with Tony Pollard, because I agree with you. I think there is some cause for hesitancy when you talk about giving him a crazy amount of touches all of a sudden, like putting him in a CMC type situation. I don't know how long his career will go on after this franchise tag year if they feed him like that. So hopefully they still manage it. Yes, he's getting more touches, though. He's going to be a very good fantasy option.
Yeah, I agree. I think by the time the draft comes around, you're going to be seeing Tony Pollard go in the first round.
That's too high for me. I wouldn't be able to do it. Hurts is so much better. I think he's talking about Hurts versus Goff still.
Yeah.
We talked about this already. Who's your favorite wide receiver in the draft right now, Tony?
This is really tough because I keep flip-flopping between a couple of guys, and for me, it's Jordan Addison. I look back at what he did when he was with Kenny Pickett at Pitt, and you watch that as opposed to what was happening at USC. And when I talk to my friends who watch the USC games, it's just sort of like Caleb Williams had options, and Caleb Williams is also more about the offense as to where Kenny Pickett had Jordan Addison, and he dominates, and he's really smooth. But then the more I watch Zay Flowers, the more I'm like, this kid can really play. So I go back and forth between them as sort of having the longest careers. And anybody who Steve Smith likes is ace in my board. So him, and I hate to say it, I never want to give love to anybody from Ohio for any reason. Jackson Smith and Jigba is becoming more and more intriguing. Because the way
he could be the steal.
Yeah, respect the people. When Steve Smith speaks about a wide receiver, it's like this is coming from somebody who balled, in my opinion, at the highest level and should be in the Hall of Fame. Put Steve Smith in the Hall of Fame.
And I like Quentin Johnson, Harrison. So we just covered them all. There you go. We like all the receivers. Booty Bandit. Hypothetically, if the Lions offered 3 first-rounders and Goff for Herbs, who would say no? I would say no.
I would say no every single day and for like the next 20 years.
Yeah. That's an easy one. That was an easy one. Do we have the script? Yeah, well, Adam Thielen has the script. The Panthers are winning the Super Bowl this year. That's why I went to them instead of the Chiefs. Here's a good one. Do you think that Staley can win a Super Bowl? Win us a Super Bowl? Duck Dynasty. I didn't know that he was or Duck Tape Dynasty, the Chargers fan. I didn't know that.
Yeah, he said he wanted to have us on the show in a podcast, I think, last week. You got to reach out to Mike to.
He hit me up. I'm going on his show, so I'll explain.
There you go. I believe that he can. All honesty, he can win a Super Bowl because of the talent that is on the roster. Do I think that he's the kind of coach that wins with lesser talent? I don't. But this roster is so loaded. Just get out of the way. Like sometimes when you watch the Chargers games and the defense is functioning better without Derwin James, without Joey Bosa, and you're like, wait, why are they playing like a top 5 defense without these guys on the field? It's like maybe you're making things too complicated to have success for when those guys are back on the field. I've brought this up with Mike several times. You look at other defensive coaches who came in and had some struggles early on, and then they were able to have success afterwards. Pete Carroll, Bill Belichick. You can't compare them to those guys, but there is hope that at least we've seen it happen where guys get into years 3 and 4 and 5, and they are able to build things the way they want to, and they can get there. So, bolt up.
Yeah.
I
appreciate the positivity. I appreciate the sunshine and pot of gold at the end of rainbows. Duct Tape Dynasty. I think after what we saw last year, until it happens, I'm not going to tell you I think that Staley can win us a Super Bowl. I don't know. I think Herbert can win us a Super Bowl. It's just, will he be carrying Staley to it or not? I don't think so, unfortunately for us.
Come on.
Maybe my attitude will change when we get closer and I start to see these guys in pads at training camp. Herbert does need to be a Charger for life, though. We would not trade him for those 3 first-round picks and Jared Goff. How dare you offer us that deal, booty bandit? Trying to steal from us, huh? Panthers winning the Super Bowl this year. Do we think that Phillip Rivers is going to get into the Hall of Fame? Yes. Yeah. I think 150% he's going to get into the Hall of Fame. I don't even think the debate is whether or not he gets into it eventually. I think the debate is he a first ballot Hall of Famer? And the debate is between people who are haters is, does he deserve it? Is the type of debate that goes down. He's going to get it 100%.
Yeah. I think that there's certain guys who get in for a few reasons. One of them is longevity. And then the other one is that they're just so well liked. Mm-hmm. And Phillip Rivers is both of those things. And people who really are within football and know football, they know how smart and how good of a football player Phillip Rivers was. Like, they know all of the things that he was capable of when facing defenses and how hard it is to win a Super Bowl. We need to stop measuring everybody based on how many Super Bowl wins or whatever that they had. Like, that is an ultimate team expression of everything coming together. What did you do versus your peers when you were there? And he was incredible.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I feel like the Super Bowls are just kind of what take your legacy to the next level. But there are plenty of guys that have not won Super Bowls at different positions that could have just been on the roster that won the Super Bowl another year. You know what I mean? And it literally was the difference between this person getting a Super Bowl or not. What do we see the Chargers record being? And we'll end the show after this one, Tony. I'm saying similar to last year, in between 10 and 12 wins.
Yeah. Last year I started off with 12, and then I just went on to full Chargers hype mode and went to 13 and 4. You got 2 wins against the Raiders coming up. That's a sweep. I already ordered the broom. Yeah. I hate the Raiders. So I'm in that same range, 11 to 12 wins. Like, I think it's over 11. I don't know that I could go to 13. I think it's 11 or over. They should.
Yeah, that should be a given considering the injuries they had last year and still pulled out 10 games. I mean, that's brutal. Like, you should just improve a ton by just not being as injured, knock on wood, this year as you were last year. It's almost impossible to do it back-to-back years like that. But it is the Chargers. They're asking for Morley in my TikTok chat, so that means we got to end this show. We're not doing a good job if they're asking for Morley. Appreciate everyone for tuning in. Again, help us out a ton, whether you're watching the replay, whether you're tuned in live, whether you're here on TikTok. Subscribe to the channel. Turn on that notification bell. Very important to turn that thing on. And like the video. It'll help us out a ton in this algorithm that we're fighting against every day for the last couple of years and probably for the rest of our lives. Right, Tony?
That is correct. If you're listening to the audio version, head on over. Do all those things that Mike instructed and tell a friend. Tell a friend, like, hey, I know these doofuses and they're good friends and they talk football and it's fun. It's a good time. Let's hit this. Can I hit this music?
Yeah, let's hit it.
There it is. 3 friends talking football, but we're always looking for a 4th. So hit that subscribe button. Peace.
We actually fired Joe. Didn't want to break the news and waste our time breaking the news, but he's fired.